What is up, my fellow Chibits? Today, I'm here to bring all of you the weekly manga chapter review of Tokyo Ghoul Re Chapter 53. So like I promised, I was going to give it a couple of days because I just needed to think, and after, that emotional chapter, I just couldn't really go back to the chapter and do a good analysis / review of the chapter until I cleared my head. And so today, I'm here to bring all of you my chapter review of Tokyo Ghoul Re. There is a lot of stuff to cover. I don't know if this video will be as long as others, but this does have quite a bit of content, and also, any chapter that has psychological themes to it usually means that it's going to be pretty damn deep, especially with the Sasaki Kaneki segment of the chapter, which I have already kind of covered quite a bit in previous videos, so I don't really think I need to dive 100% into that part of this chapter since I have already covered it in kind of like 2 videos, but I will get the point across and talk about something I haven't actually talked about before in the other videos, so I will say something rather new. But anyways, sit down, pull up the chapter if you want to read it as well alongside of me, and let's see exactly what everything means in this chapter. So the chapter opens up with Matsuri being a straight up dick. That is the best way to say how the start of this chapter was, which is kind of fucking sickening, because let's just read this dude's dialogue for a second. Lunatic Eclipse building suppression rate 81%. Save a few here and there in the upper floors, almost all areas have been successfully suppressed. And then, this is his inner monologue, he's like, all the glory won here today will go to me, the person in command. This business sure does line your pockets. Sheesh. I just sit in my chair and play little mental games and my stock skyrockets. And if along the way that uppity S1 squad leader just so happens to get killed in the line of duty, well, all the better. That is fucking sickening. That is fucking sickening. That is, once again, we get to see how the human side, or CCG, how they really operate, politics and stuff. Like, this dude Matsuri, we've already know how he feels about people. For instance, he's the dude that has a lot of operations where he will do anything to succeed. Like, he will kill 1,000 people just to kill one ghoul. Like, for instance, let's just say Arima. Let's just say Arima was a ghoul. This is hypothetical, of course. Let's just say Arima was a ghoul. He was a high threat. He was a triple S. And you would have it to where this dude, he would throw maybe thousands of people at Arima to try to kill him just for he can succeed. And that's the type of person he is. He doesn't care. He constantly has it to where people die around him, his men die in the line of duty, and he doesn't care. And this really goes to show you his mindset. Like, we really get to see his inner mindset. Like, he doesn't care about Ui, he doesn't care about him at all, but also, we have it to where he's like, ooh, I get to line my pockets of money, I'm gonna rank up, oh, I'm gonna get all the glory, the news is gonna cover me for this operation, this successful operation, and that's kind of sickening as well. Let's do quotations on that. Successful operation. Let's look at this operation, okay? We know both sides. We see this from both sides. We saw the Tsukiyama family and how that's been crumbling, and then we see, CCG and their side of how some of them are fighting to take down the ghouls. Now, this is their job. They are counter ghouls. Like, for instance, they have to go after ghouls and kill them, take them down. Okay, that's their job. And both sides have experienced fatalities. And to see how we saw some really important characters, or characters very vital to Tokyo Ghoul Re, already die. For instance, there is a possibility that the QS children, they're dead. Like, only people that are probably alive right now is Psycho and Shirazu, which I will save that for later on when I get to those pages. But this is fucking sickening how this dude is saying this is very successful, when we know for a fact this is pretty fucking bad. Like, this is almost a failure in our eyes of reading this chapter. So, yeah, kind of fucked up. That just, what a way to start this chapter. I mean, you give us Ishida gives us the abuse with Kaneki's mother, and then to that psychological game with, Goodnight Haise, just so many things, and we start the chapter off with this asshole, just like, ugh. We already know his personality, we know how he is, but just to see this, it's just, I don't like it, but we know it's been around. Okay, so his final dialogue on the first page is, before all of that, there's still someone that needs to meet their end. So, here's the thing. You don't really know who Matsuri is talking about in this final panel. Now, he already talked about Ui. Let's look. He talks about him in the panel above, for instance, and if along the way that uppity S1 squad leader just so happens to get killed in the line of duty, well, all the better. So he's already talking about S1 Squad and all that, so he doesn't really care. So it doesn't seem like he's actually talking about Ui in this final panel. So the possibility of what he's thinking of, since the context of what this other panel is saying, I think he's talking about Sasuke, because we do know he doesn't really care about the Quinkex or the QS. He doesn't care about them at all. He's against the project, and I'm going to assume he wants Sasuke to die. And he might be getting that wish, actually, since Sasuke kind of did die in this, which, like I said, I'll save it. So yeah, what a way to start the fucking chapter. Just page 1. Just page 1. Let's go to page 2. So, page 2, Eto. She comes out of nowhere. She's just flying with her freaking Kakuja, and she just smashes the helicopter. Matsuru's going down and shit. Oh my god. Oh my god. I think that's insta karma. Like, seriously, Matsuru's talking shit and all that, and Eto comes in and she's like, wham! Just right into his fucking helicopter. If there's one thing I like about this chapter, I will say this right now. Eto, I award you points. I award you points, Eto, for doing that type of shit right there. For doing that type of shit to where you come in and smash that asshole's helicopter. Fuck yeah, Eto. Fuck yeah, Eto. Yes. Okay, so clearly this dude is actually pretty good at fighting, though, because look how he grabs onto the side of the skyscraper to get back up, and he's like, just now, was that one-eyed? And then all of a sudden you have it to where Eto comes in and starts love tapping Kaneki, or Sasuke. So, let's look at this panel here. So, Eto comes out of her Kakuja, and you see this giant-ass tongue just pop out of it, and Eto's, like, inside of the head, like the head, and you see this big-ass fucking mouth. It's just so weird to see how all of this is coming out of Eto's back. Can you believe this entire structure that we're seeing underneath Eto is coming from behind, like, on her back? It's fucking crazy. Because you can see the way it looks right there when you look at, this picture, this panel on page 4. If you're counting, the color page. So yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you how massive in scale this form is compared to Eto's actual body. So yeah, you see it to where Shu, he backs off like he's up against the wall, he's blocking. You have it to where Kane's also kind of got Sasuke off of him, or off of her now. And you have it to where, Sasuke takes a big hit. And this is what Eto says, which is, wow. Actually, no, before I even get into her dialogue, let's just talk about what this means, okay? Eto just revealed her form. She just revealed herself. Eto just revealed herself. Like, you know what? Let me drink a cup of coffee, and I want you to actually put some thought into that. Like, what does this mean for Eto to reveal her actual appearance in front of Kaneki and Sasuke? Just think about that. Okay, so Eto, she just showed her appearance, and we do know, let's look at the obvious. Sasuke and Kaneki, they love Eto, like, they love Sin, they love the writer, they love Eto's writing, and they know how Eto looks, we know Kaneki's better, well, we know, the book signing, and to see this, Eto revealing her form, what type of reaction is Sasuke or Kaneki gonna have next chapter when he realizes, like, holy shit, this is the writer I've looked up to, I love this writer's work for such a long time, I get to see this writer, but it's a ghoul, and it's Eto, it's the one-eyed ghoul, just like, I cannot wait to see the reaction, but it's not just that reaction either. Let's actually look at this as well. If you did not know, I don't know how many actually realize this, but Tsukiyama Shu, he also knows about Sin. He knows about Eto. He knows how she looks, because he's also a fan of her books. Remember the entire conversation in part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul, when you had to where Kaneki met Shu, and Shu and them had a conversation about books? So yeah. So I wonder how Shu is going to act to seeing Eto. Like, I wonder. And also realizing that Eto is the one that's kind of messed with Karen and changed her. I wonder how he's going to react to that as well. So, a lot of questions I have for next chapter, which is going to be pretty fucking good. But let's get back into Eto's dialogue, okay? So, Eto laughs, which is just amazing. I wish... if there's one thing I want to hear from Studio Clown, if they ever made Tokyo Ghoul Re, I would want to hear Eto's laugh. I want to hear it, but for now, let's move on. So she's like, that little flick on the forehead back there. Arima Kisho would have dodged that, my dear Haise Sasuke. You just love taking a hit, don't you? So, I wonder how many actually keyed in on that dialogue. You ready for this? What happens in this chapter? What happens in this chapter that is very controversial and changed the entire foundation of Tokyo Ghoul? Part 1, or Tokyo Ghoul in general. Like, what changed the foundation of Kaneki's character? His mother abusing him. So, let's look at this dialogue again. Arimakisho would have dodged that, my dear Haise Sasaki. You just love taking a hit, don't you? What this dialogue is implying, it makes me assume that Eto knows about the situation of what happened to Kaneki and his mother. That's what it makes me feel like. Eto's always had this little connection around Kaneki and all that, and we do know Eto and Kaneki are very similar in some ways, especially with how Haise Sasaki was able to dive into Eto's mind through her writing. Well, we know about that, because that was displayed in Tokyo Ghoul Re. And I wonder in the past, since we do know, it is confirmed in this chapter that Kaneki, or Haise, he has selective memory. He literally can suppress memories to cope. And we do know he has multiple personalities, the way he chooses to cope with the issues in his life. Like, for instance, how he forgot about what his mother did to him. And for him to have that type of memory, there is a possibility that maybe Kaneki and Eto met each other in the past. That is a possibility. Think about that for a second. Because if Kaneki has forgotten a lot of shit in the past, because this stuff that happened with his mother, well, who's to say that maybe Kaneki didn't talk to Eto when he was younger or something about his issues to her? And then maybe Eto is inspired to write a book. Black Goat's Egg and just different things. Just think about that for a second. It makes you wonder. I mean, it makes you really wonder, because Eto is a mystery. We don't know a lot about Eto. She is a huge mystery right now. And with the way that was said, you just love taking a hit, don't you? Yeah, so, okay, so let's go to the next one. So Eto starts talking to Karen, talking about how she can't really hold her bladder, and also how she doesn't have much time. For instance, you're about to meet your maker. So let's look at this dialogue. We don't have much time. And then Eto says, you know you're about to meet your maker. Now come now, let's show Master Shu what you've got. So Eto is forcing or telling Karen to attack Haise Sasaki. Just to have it to where Karen is satisfied or prove herself in front of Master Shu. And for Eto to say, you're about to meet your maker, for instance, you don't have much time, this reminds me of the entire situation of Noro. Let's think about Noro for a second. Every time Noro's kind of been away from Eto, he's always kind of had a clock. Like, look in part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul. He's had a clock. We saw a lot of clocks around, Kanye, or Karen, in earlier chapters, when she was being tortured. So, I wonder what if Eto is trying to say that you're about to become, like, a Kagane. For instance, since we do know Karen's probably gonna die, we do know Eto inserted a bunch of Noros inside of Karen and changed her entire body. Like, just changed her insides. Like, just reconstructed and replanted. Remember, there was a chapter called Replanted. Replanted Karen as a person. As, psychologically and mentally and physically and all sorts of stuff like that. So, there's a possibility that Karen is also on a timer similar to Noro, for instance, can only be detached away from Eto for a certain time period, or B, Karen's gonna lose all thought to where she just becomes a Kagane, a controlled Kagane, maybe similar to Noro. That is a possibility. So, I just wanted to throw that out there. That could be what's going on. Maybe it's because Karen's on a timer, about to meet your maker could mean Eto, because Eto does think she is a god. I mean, look how Eto has viewed herself with, the Adam and Eve's biblical symbolism to the Bible and stuff. Eto views herself as somewhat of a god. And doing that, it makes sense that Eto would be talking about herself when she says, you're about to meet your maker. She made Karen. Think about it. So, yeah. Next page. So, we have it to where we shift over to see whoa, what the fuck, man, I can't speak. we shift over to CCG, and we see it to where Ui is just walking down, and he sees the blood, the aftermath of different floors of how people have died, and in his mind, he just starts talking about train stations, Tokyo train stations, which is pretty fucking weird. Like, he's just talking about nothing but train station names. It's just different names, like Ibisu, Hiro, just, yeah, over and over and over and over again. I'm assuming he's trying to go through a coping mechanism. He's doing a coping mechanism, trying to keep his mind off of what he is seeing in front of him, his colleagues that have died in this battle, which is understandable. I mean, if you saw, like, pieces of your colleagues all over the place, you'd probably have a coping mechanism as well, or try to distract yourself, which is currently going on. So, as he's walking, you just see this giant-ass fucking panel of nothing but trains, like train names and stuff, or train station names, excuse me, all over the page, and just Ishida had no chill with this page. Like, this middle page with all this freaking dialogue, like, what the fuck? Like, just like, what? I wonder if there's some hidden meaning in this. I really do, because Ishida doesn't do that type of shit if there isn't some form of hidden meaning. So I'm curious about that. So give me just a second. Much better. Oh my god. Coffee hits the spot when you're reading Tokyo Ghoul. Okay, so we have a flashback, actually. A quick little flashback where Haru is walking beside Ui, and this goes to show you the type of connection he had with her. And with that, it's very sad because we know what happened to Haru. She's died, and I know there's many that were shocked. I myself was shocked, but holy shit, her death was kind of brutal. And to see that, it's kind of sad how he starts thinking about back on that. Even as he thinks, he grips his Kaneki harder, and you can see that he's very depressed. So he's in a state right now to where he's not himself. Like, he feels very depressed, and he probably just doesn't want to see any more of his close loved ones die around him. Now, this kind of implies that he might pick up, you know, the Kaneki that was dropped by Haru and use it and bring it up to, you know, the QS, Shirazu, and Psycho up there to help them out. But let's look at this dialogue, or what's about to happen. So, Ui goes to the scene where Furuta, or Sota, as the Fury's been going on, the clown, Furuta looks beat up. I'm like, holy shit, like, his eyes are black, you see blood come down his face. Clearly, he beat his own self up to be able to disguise what actually happened. So he tells the story about who died, how they survived, you know, all sorts of stuff, and he kind of manipulates it a little bit. And you have it to where we get this interesting dialogue with the final surviving investigator that was beside Furuta. He says, "Stop this, Furuta. I'm not going to tell anyone." And then this is what Furuta says. He smiles. He fucking smiles this dude after, you know, just killing Matsume and them. Like, no, as an investigator, you have a duty to report the outcome of a mission. Please, you must report. And then he's done. He's dead. If you weren't convinced that this dude wasn't a mole, like, if you weren't convinced, he's a mole now. Like, he's a clown. We know clowns, you know, the clowns are getting their information. Furuta, just, yeah, right there. Fucking. So, Sota. I mean, all we just need now is to put on his fucking mask, and it's Sota. I wouldn't be surprised to see him fuck with Ui very soon, actually. Try to kill him. Maybe try to stab him in the back or something. I could see something like that happening. But also, let's look at this panel, the way this looks. Furuta, he's acting. Look at Sota. I said it before when we got, you know, this fury going on with Sota and Ui and all that. Or Sota and Furuta, whoa, excuse me. I told you that Sota had this acting about him. He loved acting. And we see this once again with how he's acting in front of his leader. He's like, oh, this is how they died and all that. I was beat up, and he's acting, which is crazy. So, once again, more correlation with Sota and Furuta being the same person. And that's about it for there. And you see it to where he starts, like, laughing and he hurts himself, too, to make sure that he can get away with what he did. So we move back over to Haise Sasuke, and he's getting the shit knocked out of him. Like, oh my god, it's fucking brutal. He gets kicked back, and Karen's just going ham all over him. Like, Sasuke can't do shit. After getting hit by Eto, he's pretty much out of commission, because you get hit by something like that, I don't think you're gonna feel too well. I mean, we've seen what Eto can do to investigators in the part 1. So getting hit by Hikakuja, probably not a very pleasant experience. And how Eto just says, like, oh, I just gave you a tiny little flick. Arima Kisho would have dodged that. It's like, that's fucked up, man. Okay, so Eto's just sitting here watching. She's sitting there snickering doing this. She's doing like the evil, like this. She's just like, like, that's messed up, man. It's like, that's it. And I want to point out something. Achievement on Twitter actually showed me the correlation to this, so I just want to mention it. Eto's appearance right here in this panel, which I did look up just to make sure. Eto's appearance when she's snickering and you just see this. This is actually, it correlates or parallels when Eto was at the book signing event. Because if you go back to the book signing event with Kaneki and them, you see to where Eto's doing this, like with her fingers. And then Eto has her, you know, chin on her fingers like this. And that's exactly what she's doing here. So there's a parallel to that chapter. Pretty cool. I like that how Ashita does that. Constantly shows, like, repeating habits with certain characters of what they like to do. I wonder if this is going to be, like, a habit with Eto or something. Because we have been shown that Hide has a habit. Kaneki has a habit. Certain characters have habits, so maybe Eto has one as well that we're unaware of. Who knows? Okay, so as Sasuke's getting the shit knocked out of him, you have it to where Karen's like, I will be loved, will be loved, I will be loved, I will, and you're just, yeah. And this is what Haise says about himself. My skull's split, and I taste honey. Last time we heard him talking about food and shit, that's when he goes into his inner state with his psychological, just, his mind. We know he's fucked up at that moment. Like, that's when we know something's about to happen. So, we go over to Shirazu now, after that event with Sasuke, starting to say, like, I taste honey. And let's look at this panel real quick. In this panel, you see it to where Shirazu takes a hit. And you see it to where it looks like Noro's Kagane coming out and attacking. I want to assume the time frame of what is going on here is what just happened a couple chapters beforehand. When we saw everybody get decimated, for instance, when we saw Mutsuki get, like, split in half, Urei is just stabbed on the floor, after everybody else just got whacked and cut in half. We know that Shirazu is going to be cut on the upper part of his arm, and that's kind of what we see right here. So, judging by the way this panel looks and the way that you have the Kagane tentacle coming in, this is probably the exact same time frame as the other chapter, like, right after, a couple seconds right after. And as soon as this happens, this is what Shirazu starts thinking in his mind. How are things on your end? Ito Squad. So, someone asked Shirazu this, like, how are things on your end? Ito Squad, well, Kuramoto is severely wounded. We're fighting a ghoul. I'm not sure about the rest. Psycho's okay. Quinkeis aren't doing anything to this guy. Even Nuts is useless. And then you see it to where Shirazu just jumps into the maw of Noro. And you can assume from this he's about to be eaten. Like, he's done. But I think there's some hope for Shirazu, because let's look at the bottom left corner of this page. You see these weird frames. Let's think about this. We do know that the QS, they have their ghoul, like, the side effects for ghouls, like, their Kakuho's blocked, and we know if these frames are kind of taken down, for instance, what Urei did, they will get stronger, but they'll be even closer to being a true full half ghoul. And seeing this, it looks like Shirazu broke every single frame to be able to save them. Because let's look at Shirazu's eye. If you look right above Noro when he's about to eat Shirazu, you see the eye. The eye of Shirazu's eye just pulses out. You see these veins, just like a lot of veins popping up. And it seems like a lot of stress, a lot of mental focus on his eye. But also, we get this panel where you see these frames just look like they're broken. And he's just charging in while his eye looks very different than it normally does. So, with this, there is a possibility that Shirazu just became a full half ghoul. For instance, he is a new Kaneki Kim. For instance, he now is like a ghoul. That means he can no longer eat regular human food. He is now a ghoul to where he is stuck having to eat human meat. Or RC cells. So, that's probably where Ashita is going with this. Especially with how this little mini panel down here is. Maybe he will still die. But I still think that he unlocked everything. And he might get ROS. That there is a possibility he might get ROS as well, since his sister did develop that disease. Who the hell knows? But besides looking at this and just this creepy form and how Shirazu just, you know, broke all of his frames and is attacking Noro and about to probably be eaten, Psycho's okay. Psycho's okay. She's fine. So, Beiko, I'm glad she's fine. Good job. Good job, Psycho. Good job, Shirazu. Thank you for saving her. That's a good thing. You're a good man. But we don't know what happened to anyone else. See, I've showed that panel before, and the panel is pretty damn brutal, because from what we can visually see, we know where Mutsuki and Shirazu were stationed. We know where Urei was and all that, and this right here, from what we can see, it looks like they might have died. It looks like they really might have died for this. Someone is going to die. I'll tell you this right now. If they're not dead, let's just put it on the off chance Mutsuki and Urei are fine. Okay, let's just say they're severely wounded, but they're not dead. I'm telling you right now, there's going to be at the very least one of them that are going to die. Definitely. With the setup with Noro, with the breaking of the frames, I feel like Ishida's setting up for the possibility of a death of one of our main QS. Because it's the time to do it. I mean, you have it to where Kaneki or Sasuke, he's done dreaming, and this happens. There is a possibility that one of them are going to die. But I still believe Urei, at the very least, Mutsuki's freaking dead. Like, you saw Mutsuki just cut in half, so I think Mutsuki's dead. Urei's probably dead as well, because he just took it up the back, or the stomach, and he's just done. So, pretty brutal shit. But yeah, good job, Shirazu. I'm glad you unlocked your frames. It's gonna suck, though, because now you're gonna have to eat human meat, if it does work in general how the Fury is supposedly been said. So yeah, next page. So, we can move over to the part of this chapter that emotionally affected me. Now, I'm sad about the other parts of this chapter. Don't get me wrong. It's a pretty fucking sad chapter. But this part in general just really gets to me. Because, see, we have spent a lot of hours, hundreds of hours probably, with Kaneki and Sasuke. We spent a long time with these characters, or this character. And we know how his inner mind, his inner psyche is. We know how he works when it comes to these inner conversations with his other self. We know how his past was, and we've found out so much about Sasuke. It's like we know him as a real person. And when we see these scenes, they're usually very emotional. They're very emotional chapters because they usually have some meaning to it that really reveals certain secrets that you never knew about from the series, and that's exactly what we get here. Now, this entire scene is kind of like a retelling, or kind of a callback to the end of part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul. For instance, when Kaneki and Sasuke had their conversation before, you know, the little black-haired Kaneki, you know, he put his hand on his chin about Mother, and, you know, they passed on. And kind of with that, this is kind of like a callback to that. This is like a continuation of that conversation. So, if you go read part 1, like, chapter 136 of Tokyo Ghoul, and when you come to this chapter, this is like a continued conversation. That's the best way to put it. So, if you don't remember that conversation, go read it for yourself, because this is how you'll understand what this means. So, Haise starts saying, Shirazu, everyone. And then all of a sudden, the black bubbles, actually, I want to mention this. The black bubbles we see here in this dialogue is Kaneki. Now, the white-haired, Shironeki. So, just making sure I clarify that. So, the white-haired Kaneki, the black bubbles are for him. And the white bubbles are for Haise Sasuke. So, now that I clarified that, I think everybody now can understand what's going on here. So, Kaneki says, you are a baby suffocating inside his own bottle. So, what does this mean? You are a baby suffocating inside of your own bottle. I guess what he means by this is you're a baby suffocating inside of your own body. For instance, you're a newborn personality, or you're just trying to erase what you were in the past, and you're like suffocating inside of yourself. I feel like that's kind of what that means. And then he says, "Say, weren't you going to save me?" And then he smiles. And then he looks down at Sasuke and says, "Quiet. I should have died that day. Die. I don't want to be happy. Disappear. Kill me. Die. Haise. Me. Die. Die, Kaneki. My salvation. Your salvation. Die. Me. Die. He's like, "That's right. shithead. You remember, don't you? A foolish, begging young one. I really was beat a lot by the people I loved most. Give me a moment. Just give me a moment. Fuck. Okay. I'm good. So, this page here. I don't need to point out the checkered patterns. Like, you know, the checkered patterns, so the meaning behind that, that's been explained enough. I've explained that enough. The flowers as well, the flowers underneath symbolizing death and stuff. I've talked about the flowers, I've talked about the checkered board patterns a lot in the past, so I don't need to cover that. That's pretty damn self-explanatory if you look at this page. But let's look at this. Kaneki, not Sasuke, I just want to point this out, okay? Kaneki saying this. Kaneki is the Kaneki we knew from the end of part 1, okay? This Kaneki, he knows, he remembers, he knows what happened, as you can see here. He's like, die, Kaneki, die. My salvation, your salvation. Die me, die. What this means, which is pretty damn obvious, he wants to die. He doesn't want to live. Kaneki does not want to live. He wants to fucking die. Okay? He wants to die. And as he says this, we get the slapping scene with his mother, which is something... let me just read the dialogue, okay? Mommy, I'm sorry. I don't need anything, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't need it anymore. I'm sorry. Don't beat me. I won't ask for anything. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I really loved Mommy. Oh, fuck. Let me just fucking fuck. Fuck, man. Ugh. So, this is where it started. Kaneki has always been fucked up. And I've covered this before in previous videos, so I'm not going to go that far into it. But Kaneki's always been fucked up. I'm just going to get the main crucial point across. He's always been fucked up. He's always been broken. We have never known the true Kaneki. We have never known the true Kaneki Kin. That means the Kaneki Kin we knew since the beginning of the manga, chapter 1, was not the real Kaneki. So when people are saying that Kaneki is coming back, for instance, oh, Kaneki's coming back, you know, they're probably thinking of part 1 Tokyo Ghoul. No, Kaneki is not coming back. Let me just quickly emphasize this. Kaneki is not coming back, or at the very least the Kaneki we all know from part 1. He is not coming back. He is never coming back. They're not. End of discussion. GG. The reason why is because what this means is that Haise or Sasuke, they have merged, but also they have opened their eyes. They are no longer putting wool over their eyes and dreaming. They're not doing that no more. They're tired of dreaming, and they are now going to stare directly at the truth of what really happened. For instance, Kaneki is waking up to where he will go back to how he really was before he broke. Which could be a good thing or a bad thing. It really depends. We don't know the real Kaneki. We don't. Before he got, you know, this coping mechanism where he erased his memories of his mother, which once again goes back to the Eto thing, with Eto might have met Kaneki and he might have talked to Eto, and Eto might have given him advice, and maybe this what is fucked up his entire psyche. I don't know. Just, I'm letting you know that with this right here, our Kaneki that we know is not coming back. And when he says he's waking up for the dream, or good night Haise, that means that Haise doesn't need to be there anymore. That Haise is the dream. That's the best way to put it. Haise Sasuke was the dream Kaneki wanted, but he cannot have. So, he is gone. There's no reason to. But here's the other thing. Haise Sasuke has always known. He has always known about Kaneki. He's always known the truth, but he did not want to face the truth. He did not want to face that tragedy that went in his life. Like, he did not want to look at that tragedy any longer. But he knew. He knew about this. And every time he had these hallucinations, like, for instance, Haise in part 1, that was also another way for his coping mechanism. He was using a coping mechanism to be able to erase the truth of what was going on around him. That's kind of what was going on here. So, with that, once again, you have it to where he is being forced to change. His entire worldview is changing again. But this time, he's going back to 0. So, there is still a possibility that maybe these other personalities might be around, and I don't think Kaneki is going to be exactly how he used to be, maybe before he got abused, but I feel like he might be similar to that. But this is going to be definitely a new personality that we have not seen before, that's coming back. Now that I've said that, let's get into the next panel underneath it. This is what Kaneki says. Hey, I was happy. Let's think about this. When is the last time Kaneki said he was happy? Yeah, you can't think of that, can you? Let's look at, the earlier stages of Tokyo Ghoul Re to prove the point of this chapter. You remember that scene where Sasuke Haise, he put his hand on his chin? Like this? And that was the first panel or first chapter we got in part 2 that revealed that Sasuke still has the chin thing with lying. You remember when he put his hand on his chin? And he says, I'm really happy. You remember that? I made a video on it. That was a thumbnail. I was happy. Like, he says, I am happy. That's what he said. And he put his hand on his chin, which means he isn't happy. So, Haise Sasuke already knows. He knew everything. But he was lying to himself. Once again, he was pulling a black-haired Kaneki. Forgetting. Just forcing it aside, pushing aside all the bad, just coping mechanism. That's what he was doing. And that's kind of what Haise Sasuke was doing. But he knew about it, especially with how he did the chin thing. And let's look at this dialogue now that correlates to what I just said about how Haise Sasuke did that earlier on in the series. Hey, I was happy. That underground flower field back then, I got to meet the Reaper. The Reaper is obviously Artima. And then, like the maggot Mommy was, I too. For instance, he now just admitted that what he truly thought about his mother. He's like, my mother was an insect. That's what he's saying. And he also thinks he is an insect, because he says, I too. So for him to say that he views himself as an insect just like his mother, which once again correlates with the black eggs, or the black goat's egg book. That correlates with that as well. And also if you go back to chapter 1 or chapter 2, you have it to where in Tokyo Ghoul chapter 1 or 2, that Kaneki talks about an insect. Well, I remember that. There was an entire insect thing of how like a family member got turned into an insect and he had to deal with how people thought about him. Well, this right here correlates with that as well. So once again, Master Ishida doing some beautiful foreshadowing and symbolism to earlier parts of the series. And then he says this after that. But I messed up. I didn't die. So Kaneki, he went to Artima to die. He wanted to die. And then he's like, I was happy. And the reason why he was happy is because he met the Reaper. And he was going to die. And if you go back to the start of that fight, when he first met Reaper, look at the dialogue. He talks about how he was happy, or like how he was looking at death. Just go back to that chapter, and you will see what I'm talking about. It's pretty fucking emotional. It's pretty damn emotional, because you see how this was implied the entire time. So we have a psychotic main character that wants to die. Oh my god. Okay. So the next one. Let's go to the dialogue. So, did I want to die? And then this is what Kaneki says. Definitely. That's why yes. Your salvation was but sleep and sweet dreams. And then this time, make sure to do something that will allow you to be loved by everyone. That is what Kaneki is saying. Kaneki is saying, do something that will allow you to be loved by everyone. A good thing, a bad thing, it doesn't matter. And after that, you see, I want to die in style. Fuck, man. Fuck, man. Oh, I'm sad. 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 I'm done. Oh. Oh my god. I went to die in style. This pretty much confirms that Kaneki's gonna die. That's what this is. Like, I want to die in style. He wants to fucking... Ugh. And then this is what Haise Sasuke says. Will that be your salvation? Yes. What do you mean? So, can you manage it? Somewhere along the way, I mistakenly began to once again desire. Yeah. I want you to look at this dialogue bubble, okay? Look at this dialogue bubble real quick. Ishida-sensei has a thing with using dialogue bubbles to tell who is talking, okay? Ishida does that all the time. For instance, with the black bubbles, it's usually for ghouls. The white bubbles are usually for humans. But vice versa, when it comes to Kaneki, it comes to those type of bubbles switch between the two characters, okay? Look at this dialogue bubble when Kaneki asks Sasuke, can you manage it? You see the dialogue bubble that says, yeah. Look at the way the dialogue bubble is drawn. It has white and black in it. Merging personalities. That's what it is. That dialogue bubble kind of just implies that merging the personalities. Yeah. Okay, so the final page says, I've had enough of dreaming. And that face of oh my god, that face of fucking Kaneki. Merging personalities, man. Just merging the fucking personalities. That's the best way to fucking put it. Merging the fucking personalities. They merged, and we're going back to how Kaneki really is. So, tell me your thoughts. I'm done. I'm done. I did it. I got emotional, but I'm done. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel about this chapter? You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.